Tag someone in this whose knots look like this. That's how the old saying goes, if you can't tie a knot, tie a lot. Would you seriously stand underneath this while a coworker's pulling this overhead? Pull it up! Or even better, would you trust your tools to get hoisted up like this? That's a big gamble that knot will hold. As expensive as these tools are. Alright, let's see how long it's going to take me to get this damn knot undone. You all laugh, but this is some of you all on the roof trying to undo some poor bastard's knot. There. Let's see if we can put an end to taking a 50-foot rope and losing 30 feet of it for the knot. One of the simplest of knots is the bow line. We'll have to get this from a few different angles here. We're not going to get into all the technical terms, but you got your short end, you got your long end, which is the rest of the rope. Simplest way for the bow line. Let's wrap it around what you're wanting to tie. I'm going to just drop this for a second. Take a regular grip on the rope and then just twist your hand over. So this short end of the rope is on top of the long end of the rope. Now all we're going to do is we're going to feed this through that loop from underneath. Underneath the loop, we're going to come around the long end of the rope, and then we're just going to follow that right back through that hole that we pulled. You can leave yourself a little extra, and then all you're going to do is pull that, and that right there is the bow line. Nice and simple. Very strong knot, and then very easy to get apart. See if I can get this a little closer. Again, you're going to feed your rope through what you're wanting to tie. Take an underhand grip, twist it, take your short end of the rope, feed it up through that loop, around the long end of your rope, back through that loop. It's that simple. And then take a look at what's actually happening here. Is you have this one is making a loop, and then you have these two making a loop, and they're cinching down on each other. So when you get used to how that looks, you can just quickly look at it and tell that you've tied it correctly. It's very strong. If you tie it wrong, you'll end up tying a slip knot, and when you try to pull it, this is just going to slide all the way down. That's the wrong knot. If you look at how that is tied, when you pull on it, that pulling force is actually squeezing that rope around itself tighter and tighter and tighter. But then when you're done pulling, you can just take and let that loop over. Simple as could be. It's easy on the rope. You're not fighting to get knots out of it. You can quickly throw that rope back down to tie on the next item. Another really useful knot is the figure 8 knot. You can actually take and twist your rope twice, pull that through, and you can see why it's called a figure 8 knot. Now you can tie it in a manner so that you have a really long bite. Anytime you have a loop, that loop is called a bite. So if you tie a figure 8, which again is going to look like that, with a really long bite, then technically anytime you got somewhere you could feed that rope through, you can feed that rope through and then all the way under that bag, and then when you pull this back up, there is no way that is going to come loose. And to undo it, you just feed it back over, pull it back out. That one is going to be less useful for actual hoisting individual items up like that. Where that is very useful though is if you tie a figure 8 on a bite and then you take a carabiner or any other item that you can just put on the loop. I mean, if you really want to, you could just feed the rope through that loop itself, and then almost like you have a slip knot to cinch around whatever you're wanting to hoist. But these are cheap. Make sure it's rated for a couple 100 pounds if you're going to be lifting a couple 100 pounds. A very common knot is a square knot. You start like you're going to tie your shoes. You'll see how these two loose ends, one is on this side of the loop, and this one is on my side of the loop. When you go to tie your next knot, you want to keep them in that same orientation and then tie that knot. what you'll end up with is 2 actual loops. You should be able to pull those loops, push and pull those loops apart like that. That is called a square knot. It is a very strong knot. If you put too much weight on it, you may not get it back loose. But if you just grab the end of these loops, pull, comes right loose. Now if you mess up, and after you tie your first one, how this one's on this side, if you mess up and put it on this side and do that, you'll notice that knot wants to lay like that. That's called a granny knot. That's a knot you probably won't get back loose, because once it cinches down on itself, it's cinched. But when you tie the square knot properly, you'll see that the short ends want to lie the same direction as these 2 ropes. And fun fact, if your shoes come untied a lot, you're tying a granny knot. So when you tie the first loop like that, you'll notice this string is on this side, this string's on the lower side. You want to keep it like that, because when you tie this last little loop, these loops need to want to lay this way. If you tie it the opposite way, if I can make myself tie it the opposite way, your loops are going to want to go like that. And that's probably why they're coming untied so often. So, there you go. I didn't think I'd be teaching grown men to tie their shoes today, but it is what it is.